This is the signature series room from Wavetrain Cinemas that features Elementi Fire. So let's go in and have a look. This is a Wavetrain signature series cinema. The Horizon design, the room that we're in is 6.2 meters long, 3.7 meters wide, and it's a standard ceiling height, so 2400 ceiling height. The other designs are available on our website. This particular design matches a modern sort of architecture that's common in Australia, which is why this cinema is very popular with our clients. Often our clients would say with this design that this room feels bigger than rooms they've seen of the same size or a larger size, and that's just simply because of the lines that we've created. But importantly, these fabric panels that run all the way down the side walls and around the back of the cinema allow us to hide all of our engineering. So acoustic panels, speakers, subwoofers. Although we've pre-designed these cinemas for different room sizes, and you can see that on our website, the reality is that every cinema has to be engineered for the client for that specific room. There are always incremental changes it might just be that speakers need to shift 100 mil, or a subwoofer needs to shift 50 mil or 200 mil, or these little changes are actually critical to delivering the outcomes that we want for our clients. We're not just throwing speakers into a room and delivering a solution for a client. That way, every project is engineered to ensure we're getting the outcomes what we expect to get for our clients. You can see there's acoustic panels around the cinema, and some of this at the back of the cinema is visible. We've left this open deliberately so we can show clients what's behind the fabric, otherwise they don't really know what it is that we do. If you look at our designs on our website, you'll see that most of our designs, you can't see any of our engineering, but for us it is critical. The room defines the sound quality for the entire system, and it wouldn't matter whether or not I was talking about surround sound for home cinema or whether or not I was talking about music for a stereo system. The sound signature of the room is the most critical part of the design. If I walk out of this cinema room and I walk into other rooms outside of here, which I do quite regularly with my clients, but you can do it at home. Just walk out of the room that you're in and start talking to yourself. And if you walk out of a room that's carpeted or has timber floors or tiles and it's a certain size, and you walk into perhaps the same type of room but much smaller, you'll find that your sound signature changes. The sound of your voice changes is what I mean by that. So if you then walk into maybe a bedroom with carpet, you'll find your voice will change again. If you walk into a hallway, your voice will change again. If you keep talking to yourself, you'll realize that there's actually maybe 10, 12 different versions of yourself as you walk around your house, but you haven't changed. So what's changed is the acoustical signature of the space that you're in. And I'm no different to a speaker. So if I'm moving around different acoustic spaces and I'm changing in my voice characteristic, then if I put a speaker into those different scenarios, the speaker will also sound different. So engineering is actually engineering the spaces we're designing to have consistency of sound quality. Now, that's true engineering. Now, that makes these the most critical element in the room. They're not the most expensive element in the room at all. I mean, these are a plastic panel and we've got insulation board here to absorb sound as well. There's different types of diffusers at the front of the room than what I've got here, and you'll see that they're sort of relatively scattered. It's not actually a consistent pattern. They're all in a specific location for a specific reason. So it's not just something we're throwing up and not thinking about. But what we're after is a consistent, what's called reverb time. So if I look at the reverb times, not just as a single value, but if I look at the reverb times across the entire audible frequency range, then that's the consistency that I'm trying to get within our cinemas. That's what defines the sound signature of our rooms, and that's what makes the sound quality of the speakers and amplifiers that we put into our rooms sound the same from project to project. That's a real skill, and I can't underestimate that. There's very few people in the world that I know that can do that consistently. And it's part of what separates Wavetrain Cinemas from pretty much every other company in Australia, I've got to say. It's what I lecture in, it's what I'm known for, and it's something we take great pride in being able to do within Wavetrain Cinemas. So what we're looking at here is 16:9 content that's filling the entire screen that you can see, and it's got that nice hard black edges to the edge of the image. Now, having a black edge right on the edge of the image means that your eye has this trick that happens whereby when you're looking at the screen and there's black on the screen, your eye actually references the black on the hard edge of the image, and your brain tends to transfer that black from the edge of the image to what you're seeing on the screen. It's something with the way that your brain works that everybody can see it. It affects everybody the same way, but it's not something that I can measure with a calibration tool. Alternatively, this is the way that a lot of the movie content, and not just movies these days, but also streaming services are delivering content, which is the ultra widescreen, which has the black bars top and bottom. So you'll see this on your TV at home, but the difference is that the black of the black bars on your TV at home is generally blacker than this, so it has more of an impact when you're seeing this in a home cinema than it probably does on your direct view television. Now, the way that we would resolve this in our cinemas is to have a masking screen like what we've got here. So the other thing is that this image is actually quite small. Once we've shrunk it down and lots the top and bottom, what we're actually seeing now is quite small, and that's not the cinema intent. The cinema intent is that the image remain the same height and actually goes wider, and with a masking screen we can actually do that. So you can see here that the image is now filling up the entire screen from top to bottom and is a much wider aspect ratio and much bigger image in the screen, which is much more cinematic. We've got 3 LCRs, which are the Elementi Firebird speakers, and we've also got 2 subwoofers behind the screen, so basically left, center and right speakers. And then we've got 2 subwoofers in between the LCRs. So the subwoofers are on the quarter points for the front of the room, and the subwoofers are also on the halfway point of the height of the cinema. Now, the reason why that's important is because the subwoofers being on the quarter point are cancelling out the first and the second standing wave in the width of the room, which means we're getting very good consistency of bass across our seats. And the speakers are on positions as well to cancel out standing waves in the room, something that's often forgotten about. It's not just your subwoofers being in the correct position, but all of your speakers being on the correct position to get the right frequency response. All of this aids us in terms of not having to EQ out problems that wouldn't have existed in the room if we hadn't have actually done our engineering correctly. So now Elementi is a digital active system, and so there's amplifiers paired to the speakers. So for each of the LCRs there's a dedicated amplifier for that exact speaker, and that's got high level DSP on the amplifiers in terms of the FIR filters to tune the speakers. So these speakers are incredibly accurate. They're accurate because of the tuning that's in the amplifier, and there's no other way to actually get that benefit in terms of a system than doing a high-level digital active system whereby the amplifier and the speaker are matched to one another. Now, I've only got one other amplifier here, which is actually for the 2 subwoofers. This isn't a particularly big room, so I'm driving both of those subwoofers off a single amplifier. That amplifier is delivering 500 watts to each of the subwoofers, and this not being a particularly large room, and there's another 2 subwoofers in the rear of the cinema. Those 4 subwoofers deliver unbelievably high levels of bass in this room. This really has to be heard to be appreciated for how good this is. A lot of industry people have been to this showroom and are surprised at how amazing this room is for the money that is in here. And that's the thing, is we're trying to demonstrate on all of our projects, when everything sort of is working in unison together, you get these amazing outcomes. But we couldn't deliver any of that if we didn't have a fantastic speaker system. So having digital active speakers has significant advantages for the system. The dynamics and the headroom that we've got in the system all means that while we're playing sounds in here that are incredibly dynamic, they're easy to listen to, and that's what we want in all of our systems, that they sound relaxed. I described the audio system in this room as being 7.1.4. So there's 7 horizontal speakers, so 3 LCRs. There's the side surround speakers and the rear speakers behind me there, which are on the side wall in this particular case. There's 4 subwoofers in the room, but they've been combined into one channel. Now, we've pre-calibrated those subwoofers before we've handed it over to the audio processor to have the final calibration done. But the benefit of doing that is we get an amazingly tight subwoofer system before we hand it over to the final EQ. So in a room like this, which is quite compact, the bass distribution in the room is amazing. And the dynamics of the room are amazing because everything's tightly timed. While a lot of people would go to big subwoofers for visceral bass and thinking that's the solution, in my experience, the timing of the bass in the room is actually the critical component to getting really good tight bass. If the timing of the subwoofers is actually slightly out, then that discrepancy in the sound waves hitting you is what gives that feeling that it's a sort of a fuzzy bass. It's no longer clean and tight. What we're after is bass that hits really hard in the chest and gives that visceral experience. The speakers on the side here are an Elementi Firefly speaker. We use this as our surround speakers in fire systems all the time. It was specifically designed for surround sound duties, although we do use them as LCRs in some of our lower end systems. The benefit of this particular speaker is that although it's a compression driver speaker, there's no direct path between the compression driver and your ear as a listener. Now, the benefit of that is that compression drivers typically hotspot on axis. So the sound directly perpendicular to the driver is actually not what I would typically describe as perfect, because it's actually slightly different to what it is off axis. So the ideal speaker in any room that we're going to do is to have consistency of frequency response on as wide an axis as possible. Now, particularly for surround channels, that's something that's critical because these speakers are so close to the listening area here. So the sound has no direct path from the compression driver. It has to go through this waveguide, which is completely unique in the industry. I've never seen anything else like it. And so because the sound's traveling through that waveguide and actually coming out of the waveguide in a very wide angle, these have a coverage of 120 degrees in the horizontal plane down to the frequency that they cross over to the bass drivers. That is something to be heard because the envelopment of this room is amazing. I specifically put demonstration material on where sounds are panning around the room because the clients are always surprised that they can't tell where the speakers are, even when they're sitting relatively close to them. That to me is an ideal speaker for a surround speaker. Being digital active, they're still high SPL output. These will play at reference level at 6.5 meters. So as a surround sound speaker, I would need a room that was 10 or 11 meters wide before I would reach the limits of what this speaker is capable of delivering in a room. So that is a significant feature of the design of this speaker, and this tweeter is actually replicated in the other speakers in the room. So it's in the surround channels, but it's also in the Atmos speakers that are in the ceiling. And that's part of the reason why we've got such good envelopment in the room. The fact these speakers are DSP controlled, so each speaker has been tuned to be incredibly accurate and consistent from speaker to speaker, means that even if I've got a speaker up on a ceiling or on the side wall, they sound the same. Now, that might sound like an odd thing to say, but we actually don't EQ our systems above what's called the transition point in our rooms. Now, the transition point is the point at which the room is modal, is typically described as the transition point. That varies based on the room size. so it's not a constant. In a room like this, the transition point's at about 250 hertz. So below 250 hertz, the room is considered modal, and the frequency response of the speakers is pretty much derived by the room itself. When you EQ, you would typically EQ to what's defined as 2 octaves above the transition point. So in this room, if it's 250 hertz for the transition point, the 2 octaves above that would be 250 times 2, which is 500 hertz, 500 hertz times 2, which is 1000 hertz. So in this room, I've EQ'd the room to 1000 hertz. Now, when clients are listening to this room and then they're describing how enveloping it is, how they can't work out where the speakers are, the only way that that's possible is if the speakers sound the same, but I'm not EQing the speakers to sound the same. That EQ is in the design of the speakers to start with, and that to me is an ideal system. When we do EQ above that 1000 hertz in this particular room, what ends up happening is the dynamics of the system suffer greatly, and the system loses its life. It's something where you would need to hear it to really know what I'm talking about, and that's where I'd sort of say, come into our showroom, experience what it is that we do, and you'll realize that our systems sound way more dynamic than any other system that you will hear. And the reason for that is because of the way we've engineered the room, the way that we've selected the correct speakers to deliver the outcome that we want to deliver, and also the way we try to EQ and design our rooms to deliver that end outcome. And our methodology for doing that is incredibly unique in the industry. I don't know many companies that are actually approaching design and the way we EQ a system the way that we do. And this is backed up by the awards that we win. The awards that we win are based on our engineering. We're not just engineering the room, we're validating our rooms, we're providing engineering reports on what the room sounds like, the frequency response of the speakers, the calibration of the projectors. Everything is actually validated in the room. So when we win an award for our projects, a huge amount of effort has gone into that. Those awards are not easy to win. We've won 2 global awards, which we're the only company in the world to have done that. They're not easy to win. If everyone was able to win those awards, they would be entering as much as possible, and you'd have a lot of various companies winning the awards, but we tend to dominate the industry in terms of that. And that comes down to to the way that we approach our cinemas, which is quite unique. And the fact that we're validating all of our projects at the end of the projects just means that the clients and anybody judging our projects knows that we've delivered exactly what we're saying we're delivering. These are the Atmos speakers from Elementi, so this is part of the water range. These are the Elementi Maelstrom speakers. The important thing here is that we've used exactly the same tweeter as what's in the surround channels. So we've got the best opportunity for these speakers to match the surround speakers. Now, like all of Elementi, there's an amplifier matched to this exact speaker with a high-level digital DSP. Once again, that's critical for making sure that this speaker sounds like the surround speakers, because this is a completely different form factor. So this speaker is going to sound very different from its initial design, and without that DSP, it wouldn't be matching the other speakers in the room. Now, the entire baffle array here is angled at 45 degrees, which means all of the sound is pointed at the seating positions in the room. If you do any other configuration, in my experience, it doesn't work. The entire driver array needs to be pointing at the seating position and needs to be angled at that like 45 degrees, otherwise you can't really get the coverage of the seats that you need in the room. And as I said, the standout for this particular cinema is how enveloping it is, and the fact that you cannot work out where the speakers are in the room if you close your eyes. It's just this seamless surround field. And these speakers and this tweeter in particular are just a critical element in why that's the case. So at the back of the room, we've got a Christie 4K 860 IS projector, which is a nice bright projector. So it gives us a really nice brightness on the screen. So I really like it from that perspective. And one of the benefits of these projectors is it can be mounted vertically. It doesn't have to be used horizontally. That allows us to get the bulk of the projector up closer to the wall. Otherwise, I would have a box that would be coming out of the back wall a fair distance, and it would make the room feel smaller than what it is now. The issues that we have with the projector facing the ceiling would be, I need to get the image onto the screen. So there's a vertical mirror assembly in here. That's something that we manufacture in-house. You need to get the engineering of that done correctly. The projector needs to be correctly mounted vertically. The geometry to the mirror needs to be correct. The geometry from the mirror to the screen needs to be correct. Otherwise, everything's going to start to go into an image which isn't rectangular anymore. So not something that's easy to execute, but it's something that we do quite regularly within Wavetrain as a solution. For a 4K 860, which isn't a massive projector, it's a game, but it's not necessarily a game-changing game. We often use these projectors in a hush box that's at the rear of the room. But something like an M4K series projector from Christie, which is quite a significant sized projector, we would have to have a huge box on the ceiling to make that work. This particular one, because it's a vertical hush box, has ventilation in the floor. So there's a duct and vent on the floor behind the chairs that brings the air into the bottom of the projector box, which is nice and cool. And then it vents out the top here, and then the whole box is insulated to cut down on the noise that the projector is actually generating. So a great solution for any cinema, but it does add a bit of complexity to the design to get this to be executed correctly. We're set up to have multiple projectors. At the moment I've got one in here, but we do have a bracket on the ceiling for another projector to go on to show options for clients. More often than not though, our clients don't want the projector visible, and the biggest issue with having a projector visible in the cinema is actually noise. There's fans inside the projector which need to get rid of heat. So there's noise attached to the projector, which is something you can't escape. It's just a case of how noisy that projector is. Now, one of the things that we need to deliver with a cinema to achieve really high quality sound is dynamics. So dynamics is the difference between the softest sound that we can hear in the room and the loudest sound that we can hear in the room. Now, the loudest sound that we can hear in the room is defined by our industry standards. The industry standards came about based on how loud can we listen to a movie for 3 hours without hearing damage. That's the industry standard. We don't want to go above that, which means my dynamic range is my noise floor. Now, what do we mean by noise floor? Noise floor means what's the loudest thing that we can hear in the room. And so in this case, the projector would be one of those loudest things. The other things that might be loud in the room would be a ventilation system, which might include air conditioning, a light driver that's buzzing somewhere. It could actually be a vibration that's in the room, that whenever a note is played in a room, that the panel vibrates and makes a high frequency noise. Whatever it is that's in the room that's generating sound is increasing the noise floor higher and reducing the dynamic range of the system. So we want to get the air conditioning system to be as quiet as possible. That's something that we engineer in-house in Wavetrain Cinemas. We've got additional space at the rear of the room, and that's because we've got a couple of subwoofers in on the rear wall here. So once again, the same as the front of the cinema. We've got subwoofers on the quarter points for the width of the room, which gives us the consistency from left to right throughout the room. And they're on the center point of the height of the cinema. So having the subwoofers on the center point of the height of the cinema cancels out the first standing wave in the height of the room. So we've got better consistency of bass between the front row, which is lower, and the rear row, which is higher. We're trying to get the best bass response from seat to seat, or what we would describe as seat-to-seat consistency, so that everybody in the room is getting a nice outcome in terms of the audio quality. We couldn't fit the rear speakers into the rear wall, which is why they're on the side walls behind the seating position, which is still a recommended practice within RP22. and works beautifully in this room. As I say, come and have a listen to it. You won't believe the envelopment of this room and how well it presents in terms of its surround sound envelopment.